Hi, it's Arjun Paliwal here, again for another episode of one of our case studies. And today I'm joined by a dear friend and client of ours, Ronald. And really today's chat's all about going into his portfolio, his success he's had, both in his industry of what he does, which is actually tied pretty well to investing, as well as his investing journey personally and kind of all the learnings along the way. Ron, welcome on, my friend.
Hi, Arjun. Thanks. Good afternoon. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity of inviting me in your podcast. It's a pleasure.
Mate, and you're in paradise from the looks of it as well.
I know, because it was raining this morning, so I want to have that nice island vibe, the chill factor.
Well, Bon, I think when we talk about some of the journey that you've been on, there's a few interesting points, and we'll touch on multiple of them. So, like number one is you're in the finance industry now, and being a mortgage broker, a performing mortgage broker, like this is something that adds a lot of weight to what you do and how you actually have evolved your investor mindset. But there's also other parts of your journey from using buyer's agents like our team, but also working with various buyer's agents so you can kind of reflect and see. And the last part is the coolest part to talk about as well, which is that buying in various market cycles. So we've got a lot to cover, but shall we start off with maybe, what you do in your current profession and I guess how that helps with the investing sides of things?
Yeah, so my I am a registered nurse by profession. So I started off my investing journey wearing the mindset and the hat of a pagee, registered nurse. And now I am very grateful and thankful that I had the opportunity to work as a finance strategist for Hills Finance or a mortgage broker. Doing this role, my mindset and my overview on what's happening on the investing world has just expanded so much because I was able to, one, network with other like-minded people, two, see how they react, especially on what's happening in the current investing world, the interest rates changes and everything, and most importantly, create that healthy um, mindset and target on what I want to achieve later in my property investment plans.
Well, it must be very powerful being in that industry now where you can actually, as a finance broker, review all these servicing calcs, borrowing calcs, and sneakily do one for yourself, right? And go, how am I tracking? Where can I go? What can I get? Is that helpful knowing that game of finance?
It is. It is actually at the first. I was like, oh, I should have this X amount of income in order to borrow this much. Or okay, from this scenario, I know that I should not doing this anymore. Or from this scenario, I should be buying this amount of kind of property with X amount of rental yield. So I know I can go longer. Putting them all together and applying them in my own personal situation helps me to pre-plan ahead. Although of course, property investing is a game of finance, and it takes a lot of teamwork, working with the right professions in your team. Secondly, a game of finance, lining up all your ducks, putting a tax return in, putting on your payslip on. So yeah, there's a lot of preparation in the background, and working in this space right now gives me the okay. I should know that X amount of months I be able to put my application in, and probably around this time I would be able to target this kind of property price range. So yeah, it just gives you that insider tip on how to plan your next purchase or execute your next plan.
Yeah, that's a really key point because it's the planning and execution piece that you bring together. Because many people can execute when they have the savings in account and the goal around what they want to buy, but many people actually fail to plan the servicing, the milestone, how they get there, how they move from one to the next. And that's a really powerful skill set. So I mean, speaking of the execute and planning, could you maybe give us a little bit of an overarching background of the total portfolio that you have and how many properties that's spread across?
So I've started my property investing journey in 2015. That is when I was exposed to the investment world, such as the online chat forums, the Facebook group forums on starting off as a property investor. Because all I know before is like save, 20% deposit, go to your local branch where your loyalty for banking is, and apply for your home loan. I didn't realize that I can go for as little as 5 to 10% and just pay an LMI. And I always thought I should just buy where I locally live. Being able to know and understand more of this information made me trigger to seek more learning and tap other more experienced and knowledgeable people to expand what I know and to become a borderless investor. So in 2015, I was blessed to purchase my first property investment in Brisbane, over in North Lakes. So that was my first property investment. Second one, I was able to purchase using equity of that North Lakes property in Geelong, Victoria, back in 2017. Um, and lastly, in 2019, I was blessed to purchase my New South Wales property in Campbelltown in December 2019. So funny thing, there's like 2 years gap in between because there's like child planning as well in between. I don't want to really sacrifice family plans and travel and those kind of priorities in my investment journey. So I just space them. There's planning in between. Secondly, every single property, there's a substantial learning and growth that I have inculcated in my strategy. Total portfolio I have is 3 properties spread across 3 states. And I am very blessed that I was able to be assisted by buyer's agent, especially Arjun Paliwal of InvestorKit for my Sydney purchase in 2019. Yeah, so that purchase itself is like one conversation starter every time I have that discussion with other clients saying, "Oh, Sydney market is so expensive right now, blah blah blah." But I told them like, "Oh, back in 2019, you know what? This happened." So that kind of story I have.
Yeah, look, well done on all your success that you and your partner have done here since the last few years. And I really like how you pointed out across the 3 properties, you pointed out the 2-year gap in between each one. It was very refreshing to realize that, hey, it's not just about going out crazy gung-ho, buying 3, could have been 4, 5, but it's also about finding those moments in between to kind of make sure that you have time to family, time to enjoy, time to have lifestyle, and still work towards a plan. And so that's something I look at that journey to go, it's well managed, well risked, risk managed as well. Lifestyle still continues. It's not like this huge sacrifice of investing. That would have been quite important to you on the journey, right, Ronald?
It is because my mantra or my mindset with property investment is it's a long-term game, long-term hold. It should not impede my lifestyle or my family and personal goals, but it will also be a vehicle how to reach that long-term goal. Like if it's financial freedom, if it's escaping the rat race, I want it to work alongside what I'm working towards right now and also what I want to achieve at the end. So I just want to find the balance. I probably could have ramp it up and by 3-5 succeeding in less than 5 years. However, I know that I will be sacrificing more. I won't probably be able to travel. Probably there'll be delays in our personal family plans if I would do it that one. Or I don't want to really live in a cup noodle diet for 5 years. So I really said like, look, let's just space it out. At the end of the day, if we will strategize our purchasing plan well, capital growth versus cash flow positive, if we will create and be working with quality team, InvestorKit, accountants, mortgage brokers, solicitors, then we know we are all in line. It's a team sport. So I think we will be able to achieve our plan well.
Yeah, I think the concept of the team there is really important, right? I mean, on that note of the team, you've worked with various buyers agents on the journey, and on the most recent one with us, and on the next one with us as well. What's been the reflection of the various types of buyers agents out there, and where you felt that, I guess, the edge of working with us made that difference?
So I was able to work with other buyers agents. The difference between those previous buyers agents I have and you in the investigative team is that I found myself lined up on how you guys explain and look after the clients in the whole process. So even my wife, she said like, "Oh, I like how Arjun explains things. It's like sitting in my lecture. Everything's well presented, PowerPoint, papers and everything. So especially for a busy individual, sometimes all of this can be overwhelming information loaded in front of you. But the way we were presented the properties, the time that we given to us to decide and even think about how we will execute things, were all in line with how we wanted to feel as an investor. We felt that, yep, this is the right person, this is the right team that we will be working with, because one, we understand it clearly, and there was actually an after purchase support. We were able to run figures. Pretty much it was a holding hand experience since day one when we engaged with the service of investigate team. With the other previous buyers agents that we've had, it was quite good. They were able to service what we need, but we felt that we were able to resonate more and click in well with how we work with during that service.
Well, so you're saying I'm an old, boring lecturer at uni. Is that what you're saying? The process is like, eh?
No, I guess like for like look, for me, if anything is fine, but if the missus said that's it, I understand that, then it's less work for me to explain further, right? So happy wife, happy
look at
life.
you getting those brownie points, Ronald. That's amazing.
You know what? I just have to keep Anne, the missus, happy. She's the finance minister of the household. So yeah.
No, look, I think reflecting on that journey, it kind of sounds like you're feeling that there's an approach of very genuine support, handheld support, combined with that research and data to move from more so, instead of just fulfilling the needs of, the actual deal that you want, but beyond that and more portfolio thinking. On your deals, I think one thing that comes to mind that we both talk about often was, yes, the diversity is great. 3 states, 3 cities, 3 growing locations now when you look back at it. But between the 2019 purchase and the 2015 purchase, I believe you learned the concept of opportunity cost and timing the market. Did you want to go through the journey of the 2015 one? Because the 2015 one today still grew really well. But those first few years, it took some time before it could pick up a lot more, right? So what was the journey like reflecting on the two?
Yeah. So when we purchased 2015, the main goal was to look for a property that would be a capital growth strategy. So we were advised that, yep, Brisbane is the way. I think by that time South Brisbane has already left, like Logan area. So we thought, okay, let's go further and expanded our search criteria. That's when we ended up being in northern Brisbane or North Lakes, Moreton Bay region. Same as in Geelong. I said like, look, I want something that will be going to grow. So like, okay, let's go to this area. Melbourne itself has already boomed, so we'll find the next available or area for the ripple effect. So yep, that's when Geelong has been purchased. Now, when comes 2019, I said like, look, I've been chasing the boat coming the next boat to sail. I was thinking like, what if I will wait for an opportunity for me now to enter the market because everyone doesn't feel confident in buying in the market that is on a doom and gloom in the everyday news, and that is when Sydney was having this dip in the pricing market, because one correction, etc., etc. That is way back in mid 2019. Because for me, this might be the right opportunity for me to buy in the Sydney market because it's cheaper. So that is when, okay, I know this is my capacity, my borrowing capacity. I know that I have this X amount of finance already ready. Let's find a property in Sydney that will be suitable to my requirement. It sounded crazy because everyone will probably be saying like, "Oh, Ron's crazy. Why is he buying in Sydney? It's crashing. No one buys. No one wants to buy or catch a falling knife."
So it's a
But
very, very different approach, right? From the first two, you were hoping like, hey, they haven't done so much. I hope I can see them grow.
Yeah.
But then, and I want to see them grow, and I feel like they're going to grow. But then this third one, it's like everything's doom and gloom. The media is saying it's the worst crash, and actually is one of the worst crashes Sydney's experienced in a long time. Between 5 and 20%, depending on which part of Sydney you're at, over 17 to 19. And you're like, ooh, this represents opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, so like no, it's like they will say, "Oh, you don't want to catch a falling knife." That's like a mantra of a stock investor. Like, yeah, but that falling knife is a discounting for me. So for me, I probably sounded like a bit of a cuckoo from another point of view, but for me it did make sense. Funny thing, my background as is a beach. I suddenly remember back in the day when I was still living in New Zealand in Whangarei, friends bring me to fishing for some snappers and kingfish. They tell me, "Let's go catch the tide." Oh, the tide changes. So like it doesn't make sense to me. But I realized that he said, one of my friends said like when the tide change, you have to make sure that your line is casted because you don't want to miss an opportunity when that tide changes because that is when you get the good fish. So from that sudden like realization, like okay, so when the tide changes in Sydney, I had that feeling. No, I have to cast my line because when the tide changed, I was able to manage to buy in a discounted dip and just in time or in preparation for when the 2021 price movement of or price action of Sydney just executed. So yeah, it was a blessing in general that I was able to have that. Let's do it. Let's execute and just see and wait.
And with that buying the dip, the craziest thing is that it was at a purchase price that like people will just, their jaw drops when they think of, wait, hold on a minute, sub 500 house in Sydney with land that's big enough to build a granny flat on there.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? Like if you ask someone even in 2017, they wouldn't have got that because it dipped that low for that point.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, every time I share that story, there's like, how did you manage to find something at that price range with the opportunity to create another second dwelling? Like, well, one, I didn't find it myself. I found I sought the help of a professional because otherwise I won't be able to. I'm a time poor person. And secondly, I just ensure that when I was deciding to purchase on that kind of counter cycle approach, I was at peace with my decision. I know that this is what I want to do. I have a long-term plan, so even if it dips further, I'm comfortable and I will be able to sustain and hold any interest rate changes or any price ranges because my mindset was like, nah, I'm gonna enter the market and I'm gonna ride that wave and hold this asset until I can.
Yeah, and with that, Ronald, I think the main thing here is that when it comes to the booming times ahead, even if it didn't boom beyond the 2017 peak, all it had to do was catch up to its peak and you still would have done well.
Yeah,
so
actually,
powerful.
yeah. Actually, even if it didn't boom, it will end up becoming a cash flow positive property because I think from the get go it was already sitting at 4% rental yield. We just did a minor renovation for the kitchen, and the tenant was so happy to offer already an 18-month lease. and volunteered to bump up the rental price. So I'm like, wow. So that itself is already such a good purchase, because not all Sydney purchases are even seeing 3% rental yield. Then if you consider already second dwelling, a granny flat built in, then that itself will just pretty much bump a Sydney property to a cash flow positive area. So even if it didn't substantially grow in value, it will still become a cash flow positive property in the long run.
Yeah, and Ronald, with that, that's a very rare, like you said, an affordability at that point. A house as an asset type in a major city like Sydney, it grew 55%, if I'm not mistaken, over the next 2 years.
Yeah, 55%.
And from that, and official bank valuations, right? And then lastly, rental increase through cosmetic reno and positive cash flow. So,
Yeah.
mate, that's not even a trifecta. That's a quad, like a quad hit there, right? So that's pretty special when it comes to that. But I guess looking at that, when you take into account one more thing, many people sometimes believe that, hey, as a buyer's agency, many are anti-Sydney or for investing, or many are anti that. And I think that proves the case that it's not about being anti any city. It's about looking for those opportunities to buy that dip when we saw that cycle coming towards its end of the decline. And we saw recovery, and we were tracking things so frequently. And immediately that recovered so quickly to see such a gain. So when you think about that, let's fast forward to periods like COVID and also now interest rate increases. I notice when in conversation with you, you now don't look at markets the same way, because you used to just look at opportunities on the way up as growth, but now you look at various things. So could you talk about how that purchase has changed your mindset when it comes to investing?
With that last purchase, now I know I am confident in my strategy with capital growth, or long-term capital growth, capital gains, and a counter-cycle approach. I am now looking at other options, such as high cash flow positive yield, because I want to sustain everything, or also I want to diversify my portfolio to work closer towards my financial freedom. So I have seen growth in my portfolio. Now I want to balance it out with some high cash flow positive. Seeing now that I can have that appetite of investing interstate, or even in a close in my backyard, I'm able to say that, like, I'm a borderless investor. I have created my team now where I know I trust well. I can just say, hey team, here's my budget. Can you guys work out something for me? So I am very fortunate. I'm working with Arjun and his team in InvestorKit to just, like, it's up to you guys. Like, purchase something as if you're purchasing for your own. Then let me know and I can work out the numbers so I can plan my finance. So pretty much that's it. Yeah.
On that note, with mortgage broking and having a team around you, Ronald, this is something many people in the mortgage broking space kind of unintentionally place that weight on their shoulders, because to the outside world, they're seen as professionals in property investing, but the truth is they're professionals in finance. And you've taken that moment to actually reflect and go, I do believe that I want to be helped in the space of property investing. What sort of tips do you have out there for mortgage brokers who might be in that same thought, that maybe they don't want to look like they're getting help because they should be seen as a professional, but really it's not about that?
Yeah. So I clearly just define my skill set. So my skill set is putting an application for finance together, and I know I can do it well because that's what I'm trained for. And I offload and outsource things that another person or another team can do it better than me. So I don't want to pretend that I know everything, even if probably I would say I have experience now and I have capacity to do it, but might as well just focus on what I do best and let another team member do what they do best. That's how team members do anyways. Like, not all point guard can play center or power forward. So pretty much that's it.
I love the NBA analogy there, mate. But there is a man called LeBron James who can do all 5 positions. So there's I have to make sure I let you know that. But On the note of finance, I think I'd really love to learn more about now with your new finance skills or coming into play. What sort of tips do you have out there for buyers that go, hey, Ronald is a finance expert who not only does lending, but he's actually invested in property and owns multiple properties across multiple states. He's continuing to grow it, achieve results, diversified. What sort of tips do you have for people out there from a finance front to make sure that they can continue scaling like you are?
First is like, don't hesitate to reach out to your local mortgage broker, or to me myself. I'm always happy to have a catch up over coffee. Actually, I make good coffee. So I always tell my friends like, look, you want to catch up with coffee? Come visit me, etc. So why? What's the reason for that? One, we can talk about how we can line up your current finances. If there's anything that we can fix or prepare towards your next servicing capacity for your next purchase. Two, make sure that you are aware of your existing debts. So if you have any lying or hidden credit cards that you actually thought has been closed, make sure they're all been checked. Check your finances if you have any loose or any unused zip card, afterpay cards, etc. that you can close down to make your further servicing capacity way better. And also, three, reach out to your broker if your current home loan or current loan can be reviewed. For one, discounting for interest rates. Two, if we need to be able to recast them to release more equity for your next property purchase.
Yeah, all helpful tips, because it ends up saving a portfolio money, recasting and accessing equity to scale. And lastly, that use of a broker just to make sure you can review across multiple banks to get the right servicing. Ronald, that's all been really, really insightful. You know, your journey has been phenomenal to see, and what you've achieved over the last few years is great, because you actually are showing investors here today that investing doesn't have to be this huge compromise or sacrifice. You can spread things out over the right years, buy in the right locations. It doesn't have to be in your backyard. You know, challenge yourself. And you don't have to put the whole pressure on yourself. Like, even as a mortgage broking professional, you're like, no, I still want that team around me to get the best results I can. And lastly, it actually doesn't matter in terms of when the right time is, because there's a market, whether that's on a rising or whether you're buying the dip as you did strategically. You've now got yourself in a position in Sydney, which is one of the most difficult cities to put, a flag in, especially with the price point in which many people need to enter it at. So well done in all your successes, Ron, and thanks for your time here today.
Thanks, Arjun. Thanks. Appreciate it.